This is Donna and this is Jim, each with a family that had to begin again. As they've brought their worlds together, they've learned a lot about blending families and finances along the way. Now, they're here to help you take on this new chapter with clarity and confidence. This is Wisdom and Wealth, financial clarity for families in transition.
Welcome, and today on Wisdom and Wealth, we're going to be talking about mistakes that sometimes happen when you're choosing a financial advisor, from the ups, from the downs, from the pros, from the cons, what to look for, what questions to ask, and a little bit of wisdom from experiences that my clients have faced, as well as myself when I was searching for a financial advisor as a widow. So welcome, Marc, as we start this discussion. How are you doing today, Marc?
Hey, Donna, thanks for having me in. I'm always good to be here with you and chat with you on the various topics that we do. So how to, find the right financial advisor. That's a good one, right?
It is.
We often kind of like, what questions should I ask? Or, what am I looking for? So I think it's a great topic, and I'm always happy to chat with you. So hope you're doing well this week.
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. We just had our second daughter graduate from college. So we have 2 of 6 out in the real world. And hey, I know I'm her financial advisor, right? I'm her mom. Not that she listens to everything I do, right? Yeah. But hey, what if I wasn't, right? So here she is, she's 22. She's about to go out into the real world, and her financial strength as a big human, I would call it all different things because she's my kid, but as a big human out there, like, what questions do I want her to be asking? And I know when I was a widow back in 2013, I had a financial advisor at the time, and I was looking for a new one, right? So even in the book I wrote, A Guide to Widowhood, there's a checklist of what to ask for a financial advisor. So I'm happy to bring all this information out onto the podcast. So if you're not reading a book, you can listen, you can drive and listen. If you're watching YouTube, don't be driving. And let's get going. This is fun.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And speaking of, we are on Apple, Spotify, in audio podcast form. And then we're also on YouTube now. So we're also doing a video version of this. So check us out there and subscribe to Donna's show. And it's Wisdom and Wealth. You can type that into the search box on YouTube, or you can just find all the information at Donna's website, which is seftonfinancial.com, which we have up in the corner of the screen all the time. Or again, just seftonfinancial.com, SEPHTON financial.com. So look, I talk to advisors all across the country. You deal with, clients and prospective clients. You just came back from a conference where you were doing some additional education and information. And so it's, the industry has blown up the last 10 years, really. It's gotten pretty big. And people now are trying to, and I think they're getting more comfortable, Donna, with finding the right person for them, not just saying, okay, I've got to get a financial advisor. Let me grab the first one in the phone book. I know I'm getting old school with a phone book, or the first one that comes up on Google search. But I think now people are realizing, let me find the one that resonates with me. And so asking some questions to find that person is certainly a valid thing that she should be doing.
Yeah. And one of the best ways we say to find a financial advisor is ask the people that you know, right? Many of us actually relate best to very similar types of personalities or work ethics. I actually know a lot of my clients have found me through like Facebook groups, right? Like the Moms of White Marsh, right? Where they say, hey, like we're a young family, and I now have a kid. I need to get my estate documents done. So now we're thinking about financial planning too. Who do you guys use, right? Sometimes people wind up having an initial conversation with me. I'm like, how do you hear about us? She's like, oh, the mom group. Like, that's it. Start first asking the people that you know around. Just as you said, phone book and the SEO search on Google. Like, sure, great place to start. But how do you know that's the right fit, right? Or that they're doing the style of financial planning you might need? Big difference between asset management and financial planning. One manages money. One manages the person, their hopes, and their dreams. That's what we do at Sefton Financial.
My daughter's 27. You were talking about yours, and so she's just a couple years further in, but she's got a good career going, and she's starting to finally listen to a little bit of what I have to say or what her mom has to say when it comes to some of the financial stuff. And, so no matter what age you are, even if you're 55 or 60 and you're even working with an advisor, but you're thinking about shopping around for another one, because maybe you're just not getting the level of service that you were hoping for, or maybe, the person you've been working with for a number of years really is helping you kind of climb the mountain, but now you need to think about how to take care of it on the way back down too, right? Which is a different skill set sometimes. So different questions to ask.
No, and I love that you say that. So like I even mentioned in the beginning of our introduction, like my late husband, Greg, and I had a financial advisor who we were very happy with. But when Greg passed, the relationship, I have to say, was with Greg. When we had phone calls, it would be with Greg, even though I handled most of the finances in the house. So I didn't have that working relationship with him. Lo and behold, when Greg passes and I need help from that financial advisor, I find out that he's moved his niche, his marketplace into helping small businesses succeed. So I didn't feel even as if he had, not skill set, but the time or capacity to hold my hand as a widow. And I needed to find someone who did. And that's when I went on the search for a new financial advisor. Less money management, more planning. As well as what steps do I have to take as a widow, and found someone who, again, was referred to me from another widow who said, oh, they took really good care. They slowed the roll for me in the beginning. And that was one of his specializations, which is pretty much how I wound up in this industry, role modeling myself after that experience I had with that advisor. But same thing, there's advisors out there that specialize in special needs, right? Advisors who specialize in high net worth clients from a certain pharmaceutical business, right? It's okay to work with somebody who is very specialized. I encourage it, right? So those are the things you want to look for. And that's one of those questions to ask the advisor when you're interviewing. Describe your typical client for me. A lot of times too is, can I talk to one or two of them? Like, will they allow me to have a conversation with their clients? Let's talk about boots on the ground.
Yeah. I mean, most advisors offer those complimentary consultations so that it's a two-way street, so that you can ask questions, they can get to know you, and they can find out, A, can I help this person? And B, do they want and will receive my help? Because sometimes the biggest hurdle to working with an advisor is, okay, they make you this plan, and it's, let's just say it's overly complicated, Don, and it's this war and peace thing. Size plan, and you don't wind up, understanding it or implementing it, well, then you've just kind of wasted your time and money, as well as the advisors. So you want to find the right fit on both ways so that you guys can be effective, a good team together. And I think the big question that people get hung up on, since the conversation is around mistakes we make when looking for a financial advisor, is the conversation around money, right? We get a little tiptoey. It's okay to ask the potential advisor, how do you get paid? Because there are multiple models out there, and you need to know that.
Yeah. And that should be something. And I do actually say, like, mistakes. It's not a mistake, but listen for it, right? Be attentive for it, because it's our job as fiduciaries, which are advisors who are making sure they're making decisions in our clients' best interest, to disclose that up front. All of the clients, before we even have a conversation, should be receiving what we call Form CRS, right? Which is in line with regulation best interest, which really discloses in a 4-page, maybe a little more, depending on the font size, PDF or paper, saying this is how we get paid. We get paid for our advice. We get paid for assets under management. And having that information up front before we even have a conversation. And when you're doing that first complimentary call with the advisor, right, it should be something that is, again, shared up front. I get paid for financial planning. I get paid for asset management. Oh, you do? How does that work? And I really say the transparency of it. We always talk about jargon, right? Like, I might know what some of these things mean, a tiered fee schedule, but am I really asking, are you understanding what I'm saying, right? Or does that make sense to you? Because maybe I could even do, okay, if I invest $100,000 and my advisor fee is 1.5%, let's do the math so you can see what that actually will look like coming out of your account on a quarterly basis. Don't be afraid to ask for that, because this is what you're paying for. This is how we get compensated, and it can vary. Ask those questions too. How often do your planning prices change? And do I household? If my brother, my sister, and my best friend all are referred to your industry, do I get a shared tier schedule? Like,
are you bundling the progressive plan?
Not endorsing anyone here, but
no,
yeah.
not endorsement. Just playing off commercials, folks. Well, you know what? I'm going to jump around on my list because of something you just said. So we were saying, obviously, it's a good question. It's a fair question. And you should find out ahead of time up front how the advisor gets paid, right? Is it assets under management? Is it fee-based? Is it commission? Whatever the case is, ask those questions. But I've been sitting here nodding as you were going along, talking about some of this stuff. And think about when we go to our doctor or whatever the case is, or when we're dealing with something we're not used to. If they're telling you what's going on, your car's broke, whatever, and the mechanic's telling you something, and you're kind of doing this, okay, yeah, and you don't really understand. But a lot of times as humans, we feel funky, saying, hold on, Charlie, I don't quite understand this. Tell me, explain it again, because we don't want to look dumb, right? Well, there's nothing wrong with pausing the conversation with a potential advisor and saying, I'm not tracking. What is PE ratio and why should I care?
100% too. And I often love to ask my questions. Like, we all have a different way of learning, right? We all have a different way of understanding, whether it be visual, whether it be audible, right? Like, and that's what, hey, our podcast is going to be on Spotify and also on YouTube, right? We all have a different way of how we enjoy getting our information. My job as an advisor is to actually ask my clients up front, are you a visual learner, right? How do you best like to receive correspondence? Is it a phone call? Is it via email, right? Is it a report that you can dive into? One of my clients, I call it a creative, almost like my daughter who just graduated, like a blue sky and just everything. She just wants to understand concepts. Married to the complete, I call it opposite of an engineer. Like, he wants the finer tooth details, right? And so I actually, if they're the first time we kind of sat together, was like, hey, do you guys want to share some of these conversations together? Or do you want me to break it up because you're not even interested in that part of it? And how does that work for you? So a lot of that too is when you're finding an advisor, how often do we get to meet with you? What is your financial planning process? How much access do we have to you? Are we having access to you or to your assistant? If you change your practice, if you sell, are you selling to someone within your firm, or do I stay with the firm, right? Like, these are all different questions you have to ask.
That's a great point. Like, what's a succession plan? Nothing wrong with asking, hey, what's, what happens if you retire, or become infirmed? I mean, people are people, right? I mean, you could get hit by a bus. Anything can happen, you know?
And I really and truthfully, we have a continuity plan at Sefton Financial. We have a succession plan. And why? Because I care for my clients and I worry about them. And so I actually say, as part of our complimentary call, hey, I want to let you know, I have plans on being in this business for a really long time. I love what I do. I came into this business from life experience in my 40s. I've got a long run to really fulfill myself in what I feel I want here. But something could happen, and I want you protected and I want my family protected, right? So here we go. This is what happens if I'm on a short-term disability. This is what I have as a plan in place. This is my paraplanner. You're going to get to know her because if anything happens to me, she'll be stepping in for 90 days. Like, these are those things that we need to make sure our clients understand, because we're a small business. If we are with a bigger firm or a bigger company, they call it big box, right? What does that look like? Like, should your advisor leave for another opportunity? Do you go with them? Or do you stay behind? Like, those are the things you have to understand.
Well, Donna, as your co-host, or as, the person that gets to lob you questions so that we can, kind of hear your wisdom, because you've been doing this a long time and helping people. Do we put too much stock in brand names anymore, right? And think about that from a consumer standpoint, no matter what it is that you like to shop for, but also financially speaking, right? So there are big box firms out there, financial firms. Do you feel more comfortable being a number in a bigger, larger entity like that? Or do you want a more personal approach with a smaller firm? I think sometimes people think, well, if it's a smaller firm, will I get the same level of service, or are they as skilled? And we just talked about, you just came back from a conference. As a fiduciary, you have to meet these standards. You're doing the same exact things that big box places are doing. Sometimes I might even say more.
Yeah, and that's a really good comment. One, we do have to go for continuing ed, right? And I'm going to lead right into this is, flying home from said conference. I was with one of the big airlines, right? And I like flying with the big airline. I think there's some safety in their training or some confidence in it. I like the app that they use for me to change my flight, right? But let me tell you, I was stuck at the Nashville airport for 36 hours, right? And there was truly no human that I didn't have to wait 3 hours in line to talk to. Everything else was on an app, right? So yes, so me, who had 36 hours at the airport at that moment, would have liked a small personal airline where I got to go look at the pilot and say, can you tell me what happened? Oh, you were stuck flying last night and it was a storm. So now you need rest. Okay, I'll understand that. But there was no one to tell me that because I was with a bigger airline, not a lot of personal service. Let's put that as one of these big brand names. And that's my comparison.
That's a great, I mean, terrible that happened to you, but it's a great story for
and cranky and a mess.
Oh, I bet. I bet you were. I bet you were just annoyed.
No, but I kept it calm.
But that's a great way to think about that, right? Because a lot of times we feel like there's some sort of extra thing in the bigger firm, but you also get lost in the shuffle, right? Yeah. And not saying that every firm is trying to do that or anything of the sort. It's just simply something to ask yourself. Again, mistake when choosing a financial advisor is our topic. So it's like, okay, what kind of, experience do you want? And realize that you might be more of a number in a bigger firm, whereas you might get more of that personal approach with a smaller firm. But don't let the credentials or the experience or the training, kind of be the deciding factor there, because, all the small independent advisors I know go through a lot of training, right? They make sure, and you're a CFP, that's kind of the gold standard, right? You're a certified financial planner. That's kind of, where everybody's at.
Yeah. And when we're talking about that, for that higher level of mentorship, of education, of training, and of ethics, right? We've said on many of these podcasts we've shared before that we hope everyone in our industry is highly ethical, right? But we have, like you said, the gold standard, right? Really, what do we have to take for our ethical training? What steps do we have to match, right? So I could actually, quote unquote, get in trouble quicker than a regular advisor because I am a CFP. And I want to hit that fiduciary standard, and I want to keep that ethics, which is why I'm very proud. Like I saw someone at my conference wearing a little CFP like zip up polo, because it gets really cold in those conferences. I'm like, oh, I want one of those. Like, because I'm so proud of being a CFP. I do have coasters that say them. My husband's like, great. Oh, for anyone who's been listening, every now and then Jim's on the podcast. This one's just mine. We all need breathing room. But
That's right.
We go.
That's right. Yeah. And I get to lob the questions. So, I'm the radio guy that converts to the podcast guy who gets to toss the questions out. But, it's great because I've learned so much. I mean, I'm not a financial professional, right? But I've been hosting. This is our 59th episode, Donna. I mean, as a matter of fact, we're just now moving to video version on the last couple ones. But our podcast is almost old enough to pull money out of its 401k without a penalty.
Great way to say it. And when we moved, I was hesitant to move over to the YouTube
but that's where everything's at.
Right. But it is. And it's also a great way to actually see the energy, right? And to see how we share this information. Because we've been able to have these conversations. We actually know a little bit more about one another, even personally, right? And we can work these stories in, because so many of us learn through stories. So many of us learn through conversation. We want to talk about interviewing a financial planner. They're going to know anything about you intimately and personally, right? So why don't you know a little bit about them too? And that's where I'm glad that we're on this platform so we can share that. And thank you, Marc, for always lobbing the questions. And hey, I talk a lot, keeping me focused.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And that's why we made the fun little intro, because you and Jim, I mean, it's a great little, we were talking and we were like, we should do a Brady Bunch style intro because of the way you guys have the blended family and you both have 3 and 3, and it just kind of worked out really well, So I think, sometimes we get a little frustrated with social media and all the technology and the apps and everything that we have, but in that regard, like YouTube, there's nothing you can't find on there, good, bad, or indifferent, right? But I think it's a great way to have additional education and information. But also, if the topic is looking for a financial advisor and you don't want to make a mistake, diving into some content and consuming a little bit, whether it's an audio form or video form or the little shorts that'll be on there as well, little 60-second blips, it's a great way to maybe get to know somebody before you schedule time to come in and sit down for that consultation, which is, again, almost always complimentary, right off the bat, so that you can find out, hey, is this person going to be a good for me? I like the way Donna communicates on her podcast. I bet that's going to work well for me when we're one-on-one.
Yeah. And honestly, I will say my clients that have seen some of these videos are like, no, that really is her wall. It's not a background. Like, it really is her wall.
That's your wall.
When you come visit the office, you will see it. But
yeah. I always felt like we should have changed the name of the show to the podcast, Conversations from the Big White Chair.
it feels like my robe. My husband, Jim, got it for me. He was like...
Good stuff.
It's good.
Good stuff. Well, you know what, folks? Again, if you've got some questions when trying to find a financial advisor, hopefully this helped you out a little little bit with some things to think about. There are no silly questions, so feel free to ask the things that are bothering you when you go to sit down with somebody. And if you need help, as always, reach out to Donna. Of course, she's here to do such, just that. That's what she does for a living. So get on her calendar, find some time at seftonfinancial.com. That's seftonfinancial.com, SEPHTON financial.com. We'll have it up on the screen for you folks checking us out on YouTube. You can also call her at 215-948-3945. That's 215-948-3945. And don't forget to subscribe to us. Consider doing so on Apple or Spotify in audio form and YouTube for video form. Hit the little subscribe button, the notifications bell to get new episodes when they come out. And Donna, I think that'll do it. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you so much. Thanks. It's been great, Mark.
I always love talking to you, and we'll see you next time here with Donna Kendrick on Wisdom and Wealth. Donna, of course, again, is a certified financial planner and a certified divorce financial analyst and the founder at Sefton Financial. We'll see you next time.
Registered representative offering securities through Cetera Financial Specialists, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services are offered through Cetera Investment Advisors, LLC. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Sefton Financial, LLC and Cetera are not affiliated. Sefton Financial is located at 8200 Flowertown Avenue, Suite 4B in Windmore, Pennsylvania. Zip code 19038.